In today's video, I want to discuss some very interesting information that came from the most recent Saturday headline segment on Hockey Night in Canada this weekend, where insiders Elliotte Friedman and Chris Johnston discuss some very interesting Toronto Maple Leafs trade speculation, as well as Mike Babcock actually on a hot seat. Could the Leafs make a coaching change? We'll discuss all this coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today's video is mostly focused on the Toronto Maple Leafs and a lot of the information that was discussed on Saturday headlines on Hockey Night in Canada this past Saturday night, where Chris Johnston and Elliotte Friedman had a lot of interesting things to say and some potential things we might see in the near future here for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who, as we all know, really hasn't had the greatest start of the season that they were hoping for, and they're kind of underwhelming and disappointing right now based on what the expectations were heading into the current NHL season. This is a big year for the Leafs. They certainly have their salary cap issues. They got a lot of top-heavy big contracts up front, and some other tough decisions they're going to have to make contract-wise and salary cap-wise over the next few years. So this was certainly a year they were expecting big things while they have this group together. And so far this season, they've kind of failed to deliver on a consistent basis. They're currently in a little bit of a losing skid. After the lopsided loss to the Penguins on Saturday night, certainly more talk has come. Now, there was some talk regarding defenseman Tyson Barrie, who, of course, they had acquired from the Colorado Avalanche in a big trade with Fernaz Kadri earlier this offseason. Certainly made a big change here for the Leafs roster, acquiring another offensive-minded defenseman who could play on the right side. Of course, they gave up Kadri, who was a big part of the Leafs core for a long time, that number 3 center role. Certainly, he was capable of being more than a third-line center, but ever since the signing of John Tavares kind of pushed him down further into the depth chart, and that contract he had was certainly very team-friendly as well. But, of course, they had to give up something of value to acquire the offensive-minded Barrie. But I think it's fair to say that everybody would agree that so far, the Tyson Barrie experiment in Toronto has not worked out so far. He's really not putting up the offensive points that he had in the past with the Colorado Avalanche. He has 6 points in 22 games, all assists, no goals, which only puts him on pace for about 22, 23 points on the season, which is substantially lower than what he's performed at over the last number of years. Generally, he's a 50-point defenseman, sometimes even close to 60 points. So this is a major downturn in his offensive production, and this is a contract year for Barrie, who's a pending UFA. Of course, the Leafs are only paying him half of his salary since the Avalanche retained 50% as well. So apparently the Leafs have been getting calls on Tyson Barrie. At this point, they don't seem real interested to trade him, but from Barrie's standpoint, they said he has not officially asked for a trade, but it's certainly fair to say that he's expecting a lot more of how he's being used and getting the production he needs to get that next big contract. So obviously, it's probably fair to say he's not real pleased with how things have worked out so far. So with teams calling the Maple Leafs, even though they don't want to make the move, it is certainly something they need to consider. But I do think it's fair to say that Tyson Barrie's production is certainly tied a lot to how Mike Babcock is using him. I mean, at this point, he's not getting power play number 1 time. He's just not getting a lot of the offensive starts. A lot of that's going to Morgan Rielly, which is certainly fair. Rielly's a great defenseman too, but they're just not using Tyson Barrie the way I expected them to, and he's not getting those opportunities, which is not leading to his production, which is just not leading to what he really needs in that next big contract. So clearly, like I said, things are just not working out. So could the Leafs move him? It's certainly a possibility. I don't think it's anything they want to do here just yet, but teams are calling. As you can see, it's not working. They'd love to probably take Tyson Barrie away for the remainder of this season at only a 50% cap hit. Under $3 million for a guy who's capable of putting up 50, 60 points would be a steal if they could make a trade. So Kyle Dubas is going to have some tough decisions to make, whether or not they go down the trade road or they go down to a coaching change, which would lead us to our next topic. Obviously, there's been lots of chatter through the first little while of the NHL season. Is Babcock on the hot seat? And we've heard Johnston and Friedman both on other occasions that they really didn't feel that Babcock was really in a whole lot of trouble, and that the Leafs were trying to be patient. They really wanted this group to figure things out. They still believed in him as a coach and the group of players they had together. Obviously, the injuries they've had so far early in the season have not helped matters as well. They kind of want to get a full healthy lineup on the roster, get everybody back, and kind of have a chance to evaluate what they really have here before they make anything too of a significant of a long-term change to this team. Of course, Babcock still has a number of years left on his contract, and he's getting paid a handsome sum of money, so clearly that would probably be factored in as well. But of course, as we know, the Leafs are a very deep pocket team, so money-wise, it's not too big of an issue, but still, be like throwing money away to pay him not to coach the team. So clearly there is some concerns in that regard, at least a little bit. But at this point, after the last recent skid here, basically during the Saturday night segment, Friedman said after the embarrassing loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins that all bets are off now. The team was getting ready to head on a road trip, and he really couldn't say with any kind of certainty that Mike Babcock wasn't in trouble, that the Leafs didn't want to go down this road before, but now he feels that they would consider it and that they do need to make some kind of a move here soon. So I guess the question to you, especially if you're a Leaf fan, and if you follow the Leafs very closely and all the decisions they've made between Tyson Barrie, special teams, even to a degree the use of goaltending, in my opinion, there's certainly some issues on this team, and I think a lot of it has to do with how the personnel is being used on the ice. So let me know what your thoughts are on Mike Babcock. Could the Leafs do a coaching change earlier in the season and get things turned around? Is that what they really need here, or is it more of a trade that needs to be done? We saw last year at the St. Louis Blues, it was right around this time when they fired their coach, brought in Craig Berube as the head coach, and we all know how that turned out for them. So clearly it's something teams are likely taking a look at and taking under advisement here if they're looking to make such a move. As I mentioned, the Leafs backup goaltending situation is certainly an area of concern, and obviously they're going to give the youngster they called up from the American Hockey League, Casimir Cascusio, a little bit of a chance, but obviously that first game he played did not go very well, which I don't really think you can blame him for the loss, but still, either way, it wasn't the result they were hoping for. And Chris Johnson went on to elaborate that the Pittsburgh Penguins, as we know, are a team that's kind of fortunate goaltending-wise. They've got Matt Murray, who's the proven starter, Stanley Cup winner. Then they also have two capable goalies in Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith, who's down in the American Hockey League. He believes that general manager Jim Rutherford would likely want to move either Jarry or DeSmith, and this is something that is new. We've discussed this possibility before, and if the right deal comes along for the Penguins, that they would want to make that kind of deal, and he feels that Tristan Jarry would be especially attractive to a team like the Maple Leafs for a variety of reasons. For one, he's only 24 years old. He's proven that he can be an NHL goaltender. He's had success at a lot of different levels, and he's played enough that I think we can fairly say that he looks to be a pretty decent NHL goaltender who could take on a bigger role should he be given one. The other good part about Jarry is that his cap hit is under $700,000, so for a team like the Leafs who are uptight against the cap, that's attractive as well. It's hard to say exactly what it would take to pry him out of Pittsburgh, but it's certainly a possibility that he feels that Kyle Dubas should be looking at. Since that's a move that the Penguins have been talking about for some time, and I would be surprised if they go through the NHL trade deadline without one of those two goaltenders being moved. Like I said, he's young, he's capable, and it fits salary cap wise. So it would give them some more options of flexibility here down the road as well. So could we possibly see a trade between the Leafs and the Penguins? At least it's something Chris Johnson feels the Leafs should be looking at. Will we see the struggling Toronto Maple Leafs make some changes? Will it be via trade? Will it be via coaching change? Something has to give here. This team is more capable of better results than what they've been putting up so far, and I guess it depends on what the team decides is really the main issue at heart here. Do they need a change in coach, or do they go down the road of a trade? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.